Kia ora, e ngā mana, ko hui mai nei ki tēnei whare, ki te kore o ngā whakaro, ka nui te aroha. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome to the top brand launch. Thankfully, you won't be hearing too much from me tonight. I'm just the warm-up act for the main act, who I'll introduce in just a moment. But as a preamble, I just want to say, one of the things that really peeves me off more than anything in life is lack of competition. I'm an economist after all, and you guys probably all know that monopolies are a terrible idea, but what really bothers me is duopolies and oligopolies. Don't worry, this is not going to be an economics lecture. But when big businesses are pretending to compete but they really aren't? You know what I mean? Like when they kind of snipe at each other and sure they advertise and they put on specials, but really they're just, they're just screwing us and sharing the spoils between them. That's what an oligopoly or a duopoly is. And if you're thinking, building supplies, supermarkets, petrol stations, that sort of thing, you're on the right track. So how do you know that when we're getting screwed? Firstly, there's perks involved, right? So, you probably all heard about, what happens with bankers, but with building supplies, for example, you may not know that it's pretty commonplace for Fletchers and Carters to send big spending developers to Fiji as a thank you for their business. Secondly, there's barriers to entry. So you probably know, you can probably work out for banks and supermarkets what the barriers to entry are, but for building supplies it's regulatory. The regulations stop new entrants. And the third sign of getting screwed by a duopoly or an oligopoly is that they have there's really poor outcomes for the consumer. The consumer's getting screwed quite visibly. And again, with banking, we're one of the most profitable markets in the world for building supplies. For example, they're 30% cheaper in Australia. So really clear examples there. I don't know if you can figure where I'm going with this. No? Oh, okay. Substitute out Carters and Fletchers and stick in Labour and National. Red and blue. Boo! You don't have to boo. Anyway, they are, they've been sharing the baubles of power for 70 years between them. It's pretty stunning. There are barriers to entry. Both of them refuse to implement the findings of the MMP review. They play silly buggers with the OAA, the Official Information Act. They manipulate the electoral advertising funding requirements or public funding. All these things stop new competitors entering. And lastly, the result is that you guys, the consumers, get screwed because everyone gets a bad deal from 70 years of tinkering around the edges. 70 years of short-term thinking and fiddling, trying to look like you're doing something without really doing anything. That's what lack of competition has given us as a country. Meanwhile, the issues pile up. An environmental emergency, a housing crisis, an aging population, disruptive technology coming down the pipeline that we aren't remotely prepared for. And the result is a generation that feels like they have no opportunities and no hope. And that is not fair. But people say that young people have given up on politics or that they're apathetic. I don't actually believe any of that's true. The fact is that politics hasn't delivered for them. So why would they engage? So what do we need to break this duopoly? We're a bit apathetic about being ripped off by Carters and Fletchers or the petrol stations or the supermarkets. We're kind of used to it. So how do we break this duopoly when it comes to Parliament? Well, there's signs of hope, right? In petrol stations, we've got Waitomo. Yeah. With banks, we've got Kiwi Bank. Yes. With KiwiSaver, we've got Simplicity. And next year in Parliament, we've got Top. So the question is, how do we break the duopoly when these barriers to entry are so high? But the answer, ironically, the answer for looking forward comes from the master of looking backwards, Winston Peters. We need to seize the balance of power by being willing to work with either of the major incumbents. That is the way to break this duopoly. And what has Winston done with this incredible opportunity? He's squandered it on the past. 3 terms in government. It's hard to think that the guy who puts himself forward as anti-establishment has now had 3 terms in government. And what's he got to show for it? The gold card. No, actually, sorry, I take that back. It's now the super duper solid gold card. But instead of looking to the past, Top will use the balance of power to force politicians to face the future. We stand for fundamental change. And I understand that's scary for a lot of people. But as they say, if you don't like change, you like irrelevance even less. Top have had a shit ton of best practice policies since 2016. That's not going to change. Some say we had too much policy. But at least when we get in 2020, we'll be ready to do stuff without needing 3 years of working groups. We will be ready to break the National and Labour duopoly. And by the way, the Carters and Fletchers duopoly won't be far behind. Our priorities for 2020 will be the environment, housing, the UBI. We'll also be campaigning for a yes vote in the referendum. The golden thread that unites all of these ideas is working smarter, not harder. Our growth as a country in recent years has come from more people working longer hours for more cows and more tourists. I do not call that prosperity, and our rivers don't much like it either. Working smarter means looking for win-wins. It means being more efficient with our energy use. It means investing in affordable, high-quality, livable inner-city spaces. It means rewarding people's effort, innovation, and productive investment, and taxing polluters, speculators, and resource users instead. It means being ready for the 4th industrial revolution, automation, artificial intelligence, all that stuff that's coming down the pipeline. And even better, actually being ready to benefit from it and seize the opportunities it'll bring. It means doing it once, doing it right, and then having more time at the end of the day to spend with your loved ones, with that painting hobby you wanted to take up, fishing, or starting a business, whatever it is that you're into. That is true prosperity. All this and more are possible if we can break the Labour national duopoly. But to do that, first, we have to convince people to vote different. And to show you how we're going to do that, please welcome to the stage our Creative Director and Board Member, Matt Zwartz.
Thank you, Geoff. I'm microphone. Goodness, I'm not used to these. Why, there's an awful lot of you, aren't there? Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm extremely grateful to you all for making the effort to come here. It's so lovely to be back here in Wellington. This is my home. I grew up here, born and bred. And in a sweet irony, I used to work in this bar. It used to be called the Edward Street Cafe, and I was a barman here. The bar was right there where the band are. Right, let's kick off. To start, you'll have to humour me a little story, which is apocryphal or metaphorical, whatever you like. Back in the day, my son, who brought me into this party, he was very good at rugby. In that photo, doesn't need to point him out. And he was the captain of the Wellington Reps, and they played in a rep game up in Porirua. Representative schoolboy rugby in this country is a big deal. I imagine people like you guys will all know that. He was out on the field, he's standing there at number 8, back of the line out in front of a grandstand of 3,000 people, and he starts yelling at the top of his voice, "Run it at them, boys! They're cowards. Look in their eyes, they're afraid of us." And as you can imagine, the tension went up in the game. And they ended up winning 17-0, and I went out to congratulate him, and he was walking down the sideline with the referee. And the referee was admonishing him, saying to him, "Listen, Geegle, you just can't do that." Brings out the mongrel on both sides. Quick as a flash, he turned around to the ref and he said to them, "I know that, ref. I just reckon there's more mongrel in my team than theirs." And I'm sure that you guys can all appreciate what I mean. All right. So we started off with the new brand a little while back. I don't know how many of you saw this and how many of you didn't, but this fool decided that it was a good idea to have a phone number called 0800 Jacinda you could ring to move the homeless along in Auckland, which is a pretty stupid thing to do. But the stupider thing to do was that he didn't get 0800 Jacinda. We did.
Kia ora. You've reached 0800 Jacinda. Unfortunately, John Tamahere's out just now, so's Jacinda. I think they might be out to lunch. I'm here though. I'm Geoff Simmons, the leader of TOP. We're going to be relaunching the party brand on October 3. We got this number because we found that, as usual, our current group of politicians aren't very good at following through. If you're calling because you'd like a homeless person moved along, I'm sorry, but TOP knows the only way to do that is by fundamentally fixing the tax and housing systems. Then we can get homeless people, young people, all sorts of people into their own home. You can find out more about that and all of our other policies at top.org.nz. Remember, we're relaunching in Wellington on October 3. Visit our Facebook page to find out more. We'd love to see you there. I'd say leave a message, but I don't think JT or Jacinda ever get them. See you in 2020.
All right. So I'm going to do the boring stuff first. It's not that boring, but I just need to set the scene before I show you the work, which is fantastic. So a little context. A while ago, this guy called Stephen Lanham wrote a wonderful book called The Economics of Attention. And basically he said information is not the thing in short supply in the information age. People's attention is the thing in short supply. And so what gets people's attention is style. Style gets people's attention, and his argument was that style is actually more important than substance in the opening stages of any kind of communications campaign. And if you want to gain people's attention and hold it, that's what you have to do. And I believe that. I think that is really true. If we look around at the way that people use media, then Stephen Lanham is right on the money there. And so that's what we have sought to do with this campaign, or several campaigns, I should say. So politics is essentially a pretty dull business. I think it is, you know, and I think we've got a responsibility as a minor party to entertain. Our competition aren't National or Labour, not yet, in the context of, you know, who we are, and we have to build to 5% before we become a credible threat to them. We can't be fooled, you know, we can't lie about that. But the real competition are the brands that we compete with for attention. And those are the brands who are dominating the market, like Adidas and Nike and Samsung and Apple and whoever, Electronic Arts, all the rest of them. That is the true competition for us. If we want to command the attention of people, then those are the people that we have to compete with. And then also what I call the New Zealand Malay: disaffection, disenfranchisement, laziness, and fatalism. Who cares? Nothing that I do is going to make any difference, right? I'm just one person voting. So we have to conquer that. We have to beat that way of thinking. So channeling Lanham, it's style over substance, and then how big is this challenge for us? Well, it's just massive. You know, and we're going to need all of you to get there, because we simply can't otherwise. And we got 2.5% at the last election. We need to get 200,000 votes or 120,000 votes to get over the line this time. Right, how are we going to do it? We're going to be the most likeable political party in the country. And that's not hard, is it? We're going to capture the disaffected voters on both sides, and we're going to destroy the argument of the wasted vote. We're going to directly challenge the idea that you choose a party and vote for life. 70% of people vote along tribal lines all their lifetime. That is a lot of people voting for one party, despite whatever their policies may be or how it may benefit them or their families. And we have to present ourselves as a real credible option for government, offering fundamental change. And we need to campaign on a small number of issues and campaign powerfully. Who are we talking to? Young people. Young people are the disenfranchised in this country. They do not participate in the political process. I agree with what Geoff said. It is not because young people are disinterested in politics, it is because politics has failed them. It does not galvanise them, it does not motivate them, it does not present them with an attractive vision that they may get involved with. Right, and so if we look at here, the key number for me is 268,000 missing voters at the last election. That is simply enormous. Our second audience, people like me, patriotic, passionate New Zealanders who believe that we need fundamental change in this country if we're going to meet the issues coming down the pipeline in the next 10 to 20 years. And there are a lot of us who are disaffected and unsatisfied with the performance of governments, be they national or Labour, over the last 20 years, and we feel that they have squandered the opportunities to make meaningful change and implement visionary policy, and that everything that they do is expedient, and it is frustrating, it is enraging. Older people who care. You know, there are actually an amazing number of them. The AGM, where I first presented for this party, really proved that to me. People who don't believe that it's a good thing that an entire generation is disenfranchised out of property and can't climb on the property market or make a life for themselves because they are so busy playing catch up and living hand to mouth. It is the wrong New Zealand, and they feel it very strongly. They want the same opportunities for young people that they had. And lastly, I think small business is a real opportunity for this party because it has been very poorly served by many governments, and there's 480,000 of them in this country. That is the true lifeblood of our economy. These are people who employ 10, 20, 30 people. They pay their tax here, you know, and they contribute to society in a really meaningful way. And I think that top, our policies are perfect for them. So if we look at where I drew that data from, I drew it from here, Elections New Zealand. Now look at this number at the bottom. 692,000 missing voters at the last election. Don't tell me that we have a participatory democracy in this country. That is just simply enormous when you look at this, you know, the number of people who are registered to vote. Why don't they vote? Because the options are really poor and they feel that they have nothing to gain from engaging with the process, and also because the Electoral Commission are incredibly shit at their job. So, let's move on to the good stuff. The Opportunities Party is dead. As you knew it, in 2017, it's gone. Long live the Opportunities Party. Welcome to TOP. These are just 4 of the colours that we've chosen. We've chosen a whole range of colours, an enormous palette of them. We've chosen the colours of New Zealand. We didn't feel that we wanted to be tied down to one colour like the Greens or the Nationals or the Labours of this world. And why should we be? And this is the position on which we will campaign. If you want change in this country, you have to vote different. And it's just that simple. If you want to make meaningful change in the next election, then you have to vote different. You can't just continue to vote in the way that you have for all of your life. You have to vote different. And yes, it does reference Apple a little bit, and I'm okay with it. So that's what it looks like. I've chosen pink for this lockup. You can't have it, David Seymour. It doesn't belong to you. We're taking it. Now, something that I was pulled up on at the AGM and that we have made a real effort with is our Māori branding. Everything that you see here today will be handed over, and we're going to develop a brand in parallel for that audience. We think it's really important. We don't want to patronise our constituents. We want to speak to them in their own voice and meet them on their own terms, whoever they may be. And that's why we designed the identity in this way, so that we can do that. There's no fern or koru or any other kind of representation of New Zealand like that, because it's patronising. What we want to do is speak in the language and address the issues of the people that we're talking to. Why? Well, our target audience are all intensely brand and technology savvy, and the new design marks a clear break from the Opportunities Party of 2017. It's been designed to create a powerful point of difference for us. I've really, as I said to the Chief of Staff of this party, created a brand that I want to use as a weapon for us in our campaign in 2020, and use it to attack and defend. It provides a wide array of tactical applications, and that's really important. Vote Different is a direct statement of our hopes, expectations and campaign strategy. It won't win us the election on its own, sadly. We're going to have to do the work, but it does provide a clear benchmark against which the electorate can measure how it works. Let's have a look.
Guts full of politics here. He said, she said, they said, and in tonight's news, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, who fucking cares? Right now, we've got an entire generation paying record rents who may never live in their own homes. We've got small businesses burdened into submission. We've got a vanishing environment, toxic waters, an alcohol harm hangover of more than $6 billion a year. We've got prisons for mental health, 2 sets of justice for rich and poor, and $5 billion a year in bank profits being exported straight to Australia. What we haven't got is fairness or equal access to opportunity. We haven't got an education system that's preparing us for the future, or rents we can afford, or drug laws that work, or enough money in our pockets so we can save, get ahead, and actually make something of our lives. They say if you do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. Red or blue, they're just different shades of the same face. The next election is going to be one of the most important in our history. The question you have to think about in 2020, do you just want a different colour? Or do you want a totally different outcome? In 2020, party vote top.
Thank you. That's pretty powerful, and it's a great statement of intent for us as we set out in 2020. Vote different. We're going to open with this. We already have a head of socials just telling me, so that's really good, isn't it? Yeah, enough said there. So the idea of Vote Different is it's a campaign that we're going to run. It'll be running on all our social channels. It'll be black and white photography, portraiture. We want to tell the stories of New Zealand. A picture tells 1,000 words, and we want to just take all of the aspects of our society and all its multicultural glory and show it. We have to be of the people. You know, we cannot be separate from the people who will elect us. And so this is the campaign that we want to use to encourage them to do that. We've got old people, young people, this guy. Now, we just made this afternoon, so bear with me if it's a little bit rough around the edges, but we're replacing all the policy in a minute. This one we did for cannabis.
Action. By the age of 25, 80% of Kiwis have tried cannabis. Prohibition doesn't work anywhere in the world. The war on drugs is a war on people. Nobody had died from synthetic cannabis until we made it illegal. Now 75 people are dead and counting. Cannabis prohibition causes more harm than it prevents. We need to legalise it, regulate it, and tax it. Top believes that we should regulate drugs on the basis of harm. Why are natural plants like cannabis prohibited when a legal drug like alcohol causes 3 times as much harm? Let's follow the rest of the world and legalise. If we don't, we're sacrificing huge business opportunities and great legal jobs. We're giving up hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue. We can't regulate and manage the strength of the drug or control our retail market. And it makes it harder to educate young people on the risks. As usual, family first are putting families last. Cannabis has been legalised overseas and the sky hasn't fallen in. Youth usage and traffic accidents have fallen. Top banks legalising cannabis in the 2020 referendum. We hope you will too.
And action.
Oh, I'm a young Paula Bennett.
Oh dear, the leader of the party wrote to me and said, I don't know if we could do that. I said, I'm afraid we're doing it. I think that's gold. Anyway, another top plan. So basically, we've got 16 policies and we're going to campaign on the ones that we think are the most important, but the rest are there. And you know, we need fundamental change in New Zealand. To do that, we have to create the greenest economy in the world. We need to put the environment front and centre. We need to regulate it and tax it, as you just saw. When house prices must come down. And we need a UBI for young people of $200 a week, because otherwise it's just so hard to live in this country. And now we're on to the first campaign, and the most important one. If any of you here who are not members, we hope that you will join, because as you're going to see, it's only $20.
New Zealand's cannabis laws cause more harm than they prevent. That's why we're fighting for real change. For the price of a tinny, you can join the party.
Authorised by Ray McKeown. Good on you, Ray.
2020 will be about the big parties, big business and big money. Help us fight for fairness just by giving small. Join for $20 or donate at top.org.nz. Give it back, Simon! You probably noticed the world is on fire. It's time to end this planetary genocide. For just $20. Save the fucking world!
They're good, aren't they?
Young in New Zealand but no rich parents? That sucks. Sounds good? Join the party for just $20. Hey, bro! Labour and National gave us a housing crisis. Thanks, guys. The good news is, Top has the policies to fix it. For just $20, you can join the party. Call 0800 Jacinda.
Yeah, they're very good. You might have noticed over in the back there is a bunch of merchandise. We've got a whole lot more coming, but if you'd like to get some early, then get in early. I particularly like this one, Another Wasted Boat, one of my favourites. And you know, we've got the logo tee, we've got the Māori tee, and we've got the beanies. For me, as a creative director, the true test of a brand is, will it go on clothing? Will people wear it? You always see people doing those corporate triathlons wearing stuff in like fluorescent pink, and it's quite awful. You know they've been forced to wear it. So we're hoping that you'll buy this stuff voluntarily. You can buy it here at our Shopify site, which is just shop.top.org.nz, and you know, most of the profits will go to the party. And then I thought, I want to do something a little bit different, perhaps for some of our older, more politically savvy audience, that'd be you, sir. The Daily Fake. We'll put it out weekly. Whoever took that picture deserves an award. David Seymour, ACT fights hard for the freedom to oppress you. Yes, indeed. Yeah, well, enough said about Simon Bridges and his Chinese connections. We never forget, Simon. 2 Indians are worth 1 Chinese. We've got good old Calvin, just to make sure that we're keeping it across all the parties. And then this guy. I didn't know this. Geoff told me about this today and I couldn't believe it. There'll be no testing of pills at dance parties with Winston on watch.
Yeah.
So you young people who are thinking of taking a pill at a party, it's all on you. Except you want to take one of his crazy pills. So to wrap it up, because I don't want to stand here and babble on, the fact that you guys have all shown up tonight makes me think that you're probably pretty powerful supporters of the party. Basically, there's a few things that we need from you. We need your belief. Without it, we simply can't win. If you can't imagine us in government, it's never going to happen. You have to believe that we can win, and then we will win. And we need that belief to be infectious. We need you to talk to your friends and to your family and at every water cooler and conversation about politics that comes up. Yeah, but have you heard about TOP? Check it out, bro. They're fantastic. And they're really funny. We need your membership. We need money. We need those two things. I hate to quote Margaret Thatcher, because she was such an awful woman, but she was quite right when she said, the Good Samaritan didn't just have good intentions, he had money also. And we need donations, whether they're small, whether they're large or whatever. If we're going to campaign effectively, then we're going to need those things. If you think about National, who have taken $150,000 from a Chinese racing billionaire, and whose coffers are currently sitting at around $1 million, that's what we have to compete with. Now, we don't expect $1 million from our supporters, but 50 grand would be nice. We need your support, and mostly we need your energy. We need you to volunteer when you can, to just give whatever you can to the cause, really. If we're going to change this country at a fundamental level, and that is what has to happen, if we're going to build something of a future for our young people, if we're actually not going to destroy the entire country and sell its soul on the auctioneer's block for the highest price, then we have to do something about it. And the only way to do that is to install us in Parliament. And as I said at the AGM, I am not here, I am not doing this for fun, I am doing it because I want to win. I'm in it to win it, and I want you guys to all be in it to win it as well. I think it's just critical. So here we have a little quote from the Broken Bells. I don't know if you know who they are, but they're a band. Remember what they say, there's no shortcut to a dream. It's all blood and sweat, and life is what you manage in between. And that's what we face over the next 12 months. And so I hope you can get behind us, and I hope you can support us, and thank you very much. And there's just one other thing I would like to say. I'd like these two people to come up on stage, please. Rebecca and Elena, could you please come up on stage? Every creative director needs a team, and this is my team. I want to tell you about these people. They've done this basically for free over the last 3 months. And all those videos were made by this woman here. She's extraordinary. This is Elena. Say hello. And this is Rebecca, who designed the brand. Well, take a bow. Okay, Geoff, all is yours.
Big round of applause for Matt, Rebecca and Elena. This is where things get a bit, huggy. Because, it's been a year since basically Gareth was going to shut down the party. And then the members stood up and said, no, we want to carry this on. So, I don't know who that was, but if you're in the room, thanks. But then, so at that time, I was with my partner on the other side of the world, and we talked about whether we're, excuse me, sorry. We talked about whether this was nuts or not. To go back to New Zealand and give this thing a crack when we had nothing, you know. When we took over this party, there was no volunteers, there was no funders, there was nothing. And what you see tonight is the result of a lot of work from a lot of people. Excuse me. So I just want to acknowledge that. Gemma, Penelope. Gemma has been my right-hand person for the past year, and you know, one of the key supporters, and is now our general manager. There's lots of other people to thank, and I'm just going to say their names. You maybe clap at the end so we don't, because there's just so many. But the point I want to get across is that without your belief and without your mahi, we would not be here today. Because a year ago this was completely outrageous, and it's still completely outrageous, but it actually looks doable. So, Lisa Long, Erin Devison, where's Erin? Wave people while you're doing this. Our policy committee, we've got Anne French here. For our board, we've got Anthony Dixon, Cam and Laura have been the force behind our regional coordinators. Who else is here? James has been a major force in terms of our volunteer team and the call centre. Gosh, have I missed anyone? There's lots of other volunteers who are here tonight who have all given their time, and I thank you deeply. And of course, once more, thanks to Matt Zwartz for coming on board.
Thank you, Geoff.
Yes.
Let's get some credit for his due. I wouldn't be here without you. Lead us on 2020, eh? I look forward to your negotiations with Simon Bridges. Can I come?
Sorry, I wrote down on my phone to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Ben Wiley, fantastic down here, and oh crap, we've also got Andy Clover, who's been, and Peter Jameson, who's organised everything here tonight that you see. And Jaya Gibson, who's also been a major force on the design side. So thank you all to them. Mark Walsh, yes, Mark isn't here tonight. Mark's our membership manager. Shy Zwartz, yes. And Ray, of course. You see Ray now. Ray is going to be a cult figure, Ray McKeown, who's been our secretary. But lastly, I really want to thank my partner, Elsa. Because seriously, without her, we would not be here right now. Okay, I promise, no more crying until election night 2020. Okay.